got my bro live on the beats for y'all. Trill D. Shit.
It's crazy to watch politicians around power. So there's this job, one person makes the decision, and whoever gets the job immediately has a lot of power. Every single one of them had a weird personal life. Something they were hiding. They were secretly gay, or they were into drugs, or alcoholic, or cheating on their wife, or whatever. And I thought, and I'm not being mean. I know it sounds like something you say just to be nasty about a group you don't like, but I'm being sincere. Why is that? Why are so many politicians living lies? And it's because that's who they are. I mean, deception is at the core, actually, of who they are. And when you watch them pursue power, it comes right out. Rather than just saying, I think we should do this because here's the outcome. And I think we should avoid that because there's the disaster that will result. It's always, if you do this, I'll give you something secret. It's like the most disgusting thing I've ever seen, and I haven't been around it in a while, and I just watched it up close over the last 24 hours. However, it's worth making yourself see it, and in some cases go through the process because it actually matters. And if you don't know much about J.D. Vance, I'm not even going to make a case for J.D. Vance. I'm going to tell you what I just saw, which is that every bad person I've ever met in a lifetime in Washington was aligned against J.D. Vance. And I do think the negative case is often more powerful. I don't always think that my side is right. I know for a fact I have been wrong many, many times. And I hope to correct and be honest about my error. It's a lot easier to tell who the people who are only in it because they like, killing other people in pointless wars. And every single one of those people in a line that would extend from Milwaukee to Chicago was lined up over the last week to knife J.D. Vance because they thought he would be harder to manipulate and slightly less enthusiastic about killing people. And again, I was just reminded that this process is so ugly that normal people do not want to participate in it, and yet normal people have to suck it up and do so anyway because the consequences are just so profound and so very serious. That's the first thing I was reminded of. And the second thing I was reminded of is that this is not ultimately political. This is much deeper. And I think what happened on Saturday, the assassination attempt against President Trump, reminded a lot of people this, or awakened a lot of people to this. There is a spiritual battle underway. There is no logical way to understand what we're seeing now. There are forces, and they're very obvious now, they've decided for whatever reason to take off the mask, whose only goal is chaos, violence, destruction. This has been going on since the beginning of time. And I do think, by the way, that the more literal among us, and I would fail to see this because we're so desperate to ascribe some kind of recognizable human motive to what we're seeing. So we call it leftism or neoliberalism or communism or anarchism. We come up with some phrase to describe it, but those phrases are inadequate. They do not describe what's actually happening. So what you're seeing now is really not at all different in substance from what you saw in 1789 in France, from what you saw in 1936 in Spain, from what you saw in 1917 in Russia, from what you saw in 1975 in Phnom Penh. These are forces of chaos and destruction which are fundamentally anti-human, which are against people. What kind of movement could be against people? There are all sorts of movements that are against people now. Transhumanism, AI is inherently anti-people. The climate cult is inherently anti-people. Explain that rationally. All of us have been raised to see the world through the lens of evolutionary biology. The species does what it does because it's acting in its own interest, and its own interest is to procreate, to pass on its genes, to continue. And so you tell me what we're looking at if the defining movements of our time are against carrying on our genes, procreating, continuing. Is that human? Well, no. Is there any other animal species that kills itself? No. Is genocide known in the natural world? No, it doesn't even make sense. Dogs don't commit genocide against other dogs, maybe against rabbits. That's because they're hungry. But no animal decides to eliminate itself because it's unnatural, so it doesn't happen. No animal commits suicide. That's not found in nature.